Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Lee Chandler with the Lone Tree Arts Center, and we are just going to wait another minute or two for some more folks to join us.
Okay. And we may want to remind people that unless they have their video off, they even if they're in presenter view, they're still on camera. Just a little experiential detail that we might want to share with folks.
The pictures. No. Oh, up here. Here. Yeah. It's choices.
Okay, people are still joining us, so we're just going to wait another minute or so, and then we'll get started.
Okay.
Hi, Janine.
Hey, Larry, how are you?
Good. I just, after I went over to the Art Center and found out you were doing it virtually,
That's what I was trying to get to.
came home and fired it up.
Well, I'm so happy. That's fantastic.
Yeah, let me turn my sound up. Hold on a sec.
There we go.
That was a great video you did.
Thank you.
It was really well done. I really enjoyed watching that.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
All right, it doesn't look like anybody else is waiting to come in, so we will get started, and I'm sure that we'll just add a few folks as they join. So welcome to the Lone Tree Arts Center's virtual Spark presentation. We are so thrilled to be here with you today. First, I'd like to thank our sponsors for this program, Charles Schwab, Morningstar Senior Living, Belco, and the Scientific and Cultural Facilities District. While we won't have social time after the program today like we normally do, this program is going to be interactive, so please participate if you feel comfortable. If you would rather not speak out loud, you are more than welcome to send a message to the host in chat, which is me, and I'm happy to say what you're saying out loud to everybody else. If you don't want to be seen on the screen, feel free to turn off your video. I think that's all that we have for housekeeping. So let's move on to the presentation. Today's program is focused on Exploring the Light, which is the Lone Tree Photo Show. It's sponsored by the City of Lone Tree, the Lone Tree Photo Club, and the Scientific and Cultural Facilities District. Our presenter today is Janine Madden, and she is one of our ushers here at the Arts Center, but she is so much more than that too for us. She's been an usher with us for about 4 years, and during that time, she has gotten very, very involved with our community impact programming, like our sensory friendly programming and our school ambassador program. But she's been involved with the Spark program from pretty early on, and she's often a presenter for these programs, particularly those that look at the artwork on our walls. So please join me in welcoming Janine Madden.
Yay. Yay. Applause. There we go. Well, thank you so much. It's really, this is a particularly interesting opportunity for me. So even though my background is the lobby of the Lone Tree Art Center, I am actually coming to you today from North Platte, Nebraska, as we begin our journey from Colorado to wherever it is that we will end up. But Nebraska is pretty cool. We saw a lot of cornfields on the way, so it was pretty nice. But thank you all really for coming today to the second virtual via Zoom Spark presentation for Lone Tree Art Center. So last month, Maureen's program on Vietnam was really successful, super interactive. She had lots of pictures and did a lot of storytelling. And so today we are going to go ahead and look at the visual arts. And the cool thing about the visual arts program that's up right now, hanging in the Lone Tree Art Center, is that they actually have made it virtual. So after the presentation, Lee will be sending out a follow-up email, and it will have a link to the show. So you'll get to see everything in the show in addition to the pieces that we've selected today. But also when you click on the individual pieces, you'll get a link to the bio and the website of the artist, of the photographer. So it's really, really awesome. And there's an extraordinary video that's on the website also, that's done by the juror for this show. So as Lee said, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Janine Madden, and the Exploring the Light show is one of 4 that is hung at the Lone Tree Art Center every year. And of the people who place in this show, they go on to the Best of Show, which is really an awesome experience. So I think this comes down in November, and then the Best of Show goes up in January, if I'm not mistaken. So it's actually hanging in real life on the walls of the Lone Tree Art Center. And so if you're interested in seeing it in real life, just give the Art Center a call. Their lobby is now open, if I'm not mistaken, Monday through Friday. Is that right?
That's right, from 10 to 2.
10 to 2. So, and they have it marked off beautifully with places to stand and stanchions and everything. So it's a really, it's hung beautifully, as is every show that's in there. But this show in particular, at least for me, was positioned really, really beautifully on the walls with the lighting and everything. It's great. So we're going to go ahead and take a closer look at 3 of the pieces from this exhibition, from this show. And we are going to go through each of them, and we're going to consider the following when we look at each piece. So first we will observe, and the rule of thumb really when you're considering art in general, and particularly pieces that are unfamiliar to you. So if you go to a gallery or a museum and you see a piece that you've never seen before, that's something that you may not even be drawn to. The key to looking at a piece and noticing about it is to actually just look at it. And we are going to spend close to a full minute looking at each of the photographs before we begin to talk about them. Next, we'll describe what we see. So we're going to look for things like the colors and the patterns, the elements, what's actually in the photograph that we're looking at, the subject matter, lines, shapes that you actually see. What jumps out at you and forces you to look more closely at the piece? And what are some of the details in the photograph? And again, there's only one way to observe those photographs, is to look at it for at least a minute if we can. Next, we'll interpret and discuss what we see. And we'll learn a little bit more about the photographer. We'll consider what the image might be trying to convey and why we think the photographer chose the piece. We'll also discuss how he or she intended the viewer to react. And then lastly, we will go ahead and make a connection to how the image makes us feel. What emotion does it stir within us? And have we experienced a similar feeling when we've been to similar places or had similar experiences that are depicted in the photographs that we're going to look at? So like Lee mentioned, there are several ways to participate. You can keep your video up or not. Everyone is muted, but you may be and you may not be. It's completely up to you. If you would like to participate, just jump in. There's a lot of folks here today. And so just, I'll try and catch people as they're saying things. Lee will help out. And then there's also a chat. So you certainly can put your comments into the chat, and we will go ahead and make sure that we catch all those as well. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our first image. And when I click on the screen, we are going to go ahead and do that first step of observing. So I'm going to be silent. So surprising. And then we are going to take a look at this image for about 60 seconds.
Als het almost looks like it's a marble. Like that.
So start to think, what's jumping out at you? Some people do a very methodic sweep. They start at one corner, they go from right to left or left to right, and they just move up and down the whole piece so they don't miss anything. Some people's eyes go right to a particular part of the piece. I was just going to say, and branch out, but that's a little literal for this piece here. All right. So what are you seeing? What are you thinking? What are you observing actually?
I think it's the shadow that we're seeing on snow
Annette, okay.
rather than the actual picture of the branch or the tree.
Okay, so a shadow on the snow of a branch of a tree. Is that what you're thinking?
Or the
Okay.
top of the tree or whatever.
Yep. Okay. Anybody else?
With all the leaves on the snow.
Yeah.
So the leaves have kind of fallen on the snow. What color are the leaves that you're seeing?
Orangish yellow.
Orangey.
All
Yeah.
rust color.
Rust, orange, yellow. Good, good. What kind of lines are you noticing?
Well, it looks like the snow has melted and frozen again a bit in certain areas. Kind of shiny, so it looks like it has, you know, melted, maybe frozen again.
Yes, so you're noticing sort of a bit of a shine, a little bit of a reflection. Yeah. Where could this have been taken?
Could have been in our backyard.
I was just going to say, yes, if you're in Colorado, this could have been just a week ago. We had crazy snowy weather.
Except the tree wasn't that far a week ago.
That's very true. That's very, very true. So you're using a lot of good context in there to tell me when this could have happened. What do you think that the photographer was trying to convey with this image? What message do you think they were sending for people who were looking at it? Why would you think?
The power of the shadow.
Thank you so much. The power of a shadow. Good. Sometimes photographers, I know that when we're taking photographs or we see typically when we're taking them, we're trying to capture a moment in time, right?
We need to play moon shadow as we look at this.
There you go. A little background music. I like it. Excellent. Excellent. So when anybody, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, it just looks like change is always happening.
Yes. So again, that's kind of that a nice step from the actual visual to a little more philosophical, right? Things are always in a state of flux to some degree. What about the feelings that you have when you look at this piece? How does it make you feel? Or does it stir a particular emotion in you?
Cold.
Cold, yes, good.
I want to get my snowshoes on.
There you go. Yes. It doesn't make me want to go put on my bathing suit and jump in the pool. All right, before we move on, I want to make sure no one else has anything to add. We good?
I was thinking that fall is my favorite season, and it's always so short here in Colorado. So I'm thinking up another short fall in Colorado.
Exactly. Yeah, that's very true. Sometimes it seems like we go from, I think when it snowed last week, we're still in summer. I think it's not even fall yet. When is fall? A couple days from now?
Yeah.
The autumnal equinox is coming up, maybe 21st, 22nd?
Yeah, the 22nd.
Okay. So
A participant has said that it's a beautiful picture.
It is extraordinary, and I have to say that it is hung right when I walked in from the back door. It is hung, and it was the first piece I saw. And typically, the way the process for Spark goes is I get to go a few days after the show is hung, and I tour the whole show, and then I select the 3 pieces. And this one I selected before I looked at anything else. It was amazing to me, and I think probably I have said in the past that when you're looking at work, whether it's in a gallery or a museum or in a show like this hung up, to not look at the label. But when I saw the title of this piece, which we will reveal shortly, I immediately was drawn to, it kind of affirmed why I was drawn to it. I think it's my biology background, but I really was drawn to this piece. And so today, we are actually lucky enough to be joined by the gentleman who shot this image, Raj Manikam, and he will share the title of his work, which is one of the reasons why I chose it. And many of you will say, that's so unlike her, because you know I'm anti-label. I always say people spend more time reading the label of a piece than actually looking at the piece. And so luckily this label just had the title and his name. But before we hear from Raj, let me tell you a little bit about him from his artist statement for the show. What makes Raj's work so singular is his engagement between image and story. He strives to shine a light on the reality of the human experience through composition and honest storytelling. Working within a unique triangle of context, Raj brings a synthesis of fine art, storytelling, and photojournalism to his photography that is rarely seen in modern pictorial circles. His photos can often be seen as an attempt to recapture missed opportunities from the past while seeking to secure and preserve the present. From spectacular landscapes to humorous everyday scenes and deeply personal moments, Raj maintains a lightness of touch and an eye for the truth that sustains the difficult balance between the obtuse and the everyday. He uses the rich language of his Eastern culture and his more than 2 decades gained Western point of view to draw in viewers and tell a uniquely framed story that only he can. So welcome to Spark, Raj. We're so glad that you're here today to shed a little light on your entry into the show this year.
Thank you
So,
for inviting me. Appreciate
absolutely. Take it away.
it. All right. This image is, I named this dendritic passage. So if you were to look at it closely again, or maybe if you remember what was shown earlier, it is not a tree. It's not a shadow of a tree. I don't know whether you want to put the picture up again, but dendritic is pretty common in many things that we see day to day, but it's just that we tend to overlook them. So this is actually a dendritic passage. It's not a tree, it's a passage of water that's breaking away from ice and just coming out of a crack and at a pond. So dendritic is, if you look at trees, tree branches, even our veins, and Janine, you can talk a little bit more about that. But in geology, slope terrain and river channels, and if you are 30,000 feet above, in an aircraft, if you look down, you will see dendritic passage of formation that is from erosion. So there's so many things that we tend to see all along, but we don't give too much of attention to it. In this particular photo, and also a series that I'm kind of working on, is to capture photos of this sort of dendritic passage or anything similar to it to kind of give light to it and to capture small details and to share nature's simplicity is something, even though it's deceiving in this photo, what it showed. In this particular series, I'm just, going at showing what is just so common that we always overlook.
Outstanding. Yeah. For me, the dendritic piece, of course, was the fact that our nerves, our neurons, the cells that make up our nerves are comprised of two kinds of cells, dendrites and axons. And so the dendritic piece really drew me. And also as a photographer or as someone who takes photos with their iPhone, so those are two completely different things. I often seek out this kind of pattern in photographs that I noticed in nature, sometimes in particularly water areas where, like on the sand, you'll see this pattern as Raj was mentioning. So thanks so much, Raj. We really appreciate. It's always great to have the perspective of the photographer to clear up what we, if we don't know what something is. And so we appreciate it. And we hope you'll stay on the call. We should have some time at the end for some questions. So feel free to stay on the call with us.
Thank you.
All right, we are going to move on to the next picture, next photograph.
It's the break in the eyes.
Can everyone see that okay?
Yeah.
I'm using a new technique here and I want to make sure that, okay. So this is a particularly stunning piece that really caught my eye, as did the other images that we're going to look at and that we've looked at already. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at this piece just for about 30 to 40 seconds. Okay, who'd like to start us off with what captured their eye when they looked at this particular piece?
Well, the first thing that I saw is the baby's face, so alert and, questioning, like, who are you? Or one of that. It just popped right out.
Good, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I thought the baby was asking, have you talked to my agent before you take my picture?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously, female figure, child. Any guess as to the relationship between the two?
Mother and child.
Mother and child? Where could this have been taken?
Peru.
Say that again. Was that Annette?
Yeah, Peru.
Peru?
Mhm.
Any, what made you think that?
All the patterns in the way she's carrying it's probably a blanket she's carrying the baby in, and the hat on the baby, and just all the embroideries. And it could also, I don't know if China would be, she kind of looks Chinese, but I just think all those patterns kind of make me think of Peru.
Sure. Okay. speaking of the mom, we are going to go ahead and look at her a little more closely. What do you notice about her?
She's beautiful.
She is.
She has a bemused smile.
She does. It's very Mona Lisa-like, actually. When I was looking at it, it was like,
Yeah.
What about her age?
She looks very young.
She does. She's quite smooth, her skin.
And the baby could be a sibling.
Let's take a peek. So the baby could be a sibling, could be her child. What do you notice about the baby?
He's got a jacket on that doesn't appear to be in the ethnic community design.
Okay, yeah, it's sort of, what are you thinking about that jacket?
Might be a little like a sports team or something.
Sure.
Somebody came to visit and brought him a little jacket from someplace else.
Okay, yeah. So, excuse me, what struck me most about this image was the black and white capture.
Yeah.
Why do you think, I mean, if the Peru guess is correct, and typically the woven materials in Peru are generally fairly bright colored, why do you think the photographer chose to show us these folks in black and white instead of in color?
Wanted us to focus on the faces rather than all the patterns.
Yeah, focus on the faces rather than on patterns. So you think that that was a conscious decision to help us change the way we look at the image?
Sure.
I think so.
Go back to the woman, would you?
Sure.
Given the black background, look at how the photographer pulled out you could still see her hair against that black and the top of her hat. I mean, that's just exceptional.
Yes.
Work
Yeah.
the photographer did. Just amazing.
And thank you, because again, the only way to notice her hair, particularly the hair that's in the lower, near her cheek, is to look long. Even just noticing in this particular picture, the difference in the fabric ties that are used to keep it, looks like maybe used to keep her hat on, versus the wrap that she's using to hold her child or hold the child. So yeah, exquisite detail in this piece. So that black and white piece, the black and white nature of the piece was very stunning to me. And I find that there is something very stirring emotionally about black and white pieces. I'm not really sure, particularly ones that are beautifully done like this. I'm not really sure what that's all about because I'm totally a color girl, but I don't know. I just really was drawn to the black and white nature of the piece. The photograph was submitted by Ron Cooper, who is joining us today. Hey, Ron, can you hear us? Is he there?
He's here.
Okay.
I think you need to unmute, Ron.
Are you on mute?
Yeah, no, I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Oh,
Yes.
fantastic. It's just like when I was watching Princess Bride and somebody muted and they weren't supposed to, but it was okay. So we're glad you're here. I'm going to tell a little bit about you before you talk to us about this magnificent portrait that you submitted to the show. Ron is a travel, documentary, and portrait photographer based in Denver, Colorado. He travels extensively in pursuit of images that reflect local cultures and people. His emphasis in recent years has been on portraiture, with the objective of introducing viewers to the people he meets and photographs at home and around the world. His photographs are intended to convey a sense of place, personality, and emotion. He's been privileged to meet and photograph people in many different places on 5 continents and across diverse geographies, cultures, and ways of life. While his photographs document the many differences in appearance, dress, culture, faith, and way of life, he hopes they also convey the fact that our similarities and our connectedness as humans far outweigh those superficial differences. So welcome, Ron, and we're hoping that you can share a little bit about this image with us today.
Thank you, Janine. And thank you for inviting me to participate. I'm delighted to be here. This picture was made in Huillac, Peru, which is in the high Andes, in a small rural community where the people are primarily involved in the cultivation of potatoes. And I was in this particular location, spending a little bit of time there, and I saw this woman and her baby returning from one of their potato fields. She had actually been working in the field with the baby on her back. They use this blanket. In Spanish, it's called a manta or a cobija, and they wrap the baby in it, and then they tie it over their shoulders in a very secure way. And she can work quite vigorously in the field with her child on her back the whole time. Someone made the observation just a moment ago that this woman appears to be quite young. In fact, she's 17 years old. And it's not unusual at all in that community for women to have children at quite a young age. And she's obviously quite fit and able to work in the field with the baby on her back at high altitude. And you can see she's barely broken a sweat. She looks fresh as a daisy. And she caught my eye because of the beautiful texture of these textiles that she's wearing. And in these communities in the Andes, these are called Quechua people who are descendants of the Inca, you can often tell exactly which community someone is from by the designs in the textiles that they wear. And so you can look at the blanket that she's using to carry the baby, or you can look at her hat or her own dress, including the belt that she's wearing around her skirt, or the ties that are used on the hat. Or you can look at the child's hat, which has a pattern of llamas on it, and you might be able to determine almost exactly which community she's from, because each community has its own designs and makes use of its own colors, most of which are actually produced in those local communities. So they not only cultivate potatoes, but they also raise llamas and vicuñas and alpacas, and they take the wool off those animals and they spin it and dye it, and they do quite a lot of weaving, much of which is brought to market in lower elevations in places like Cusco, Peru, and sold both locally and into the tourist markets. Someone made the observation that the child is wearing a jacket or a sweater that is not a genuine indigenous article. And I had not noticed that previously. And I heard this comment several weeks ago, and I went back and I researched this. I was able to get in touch with someone in that community where that photograph was made. I had actually sent that person some digital files of these photographs. And I was able to reach out to him, and I asked about that, and he looked into it, and he came back and said, in fact, that jacket was something that she acquired for her baby by trading some of the textiles that she was selling down in Cusco for the jacket. And so that was a very accurate observation, whoever made that observation. And it turns out to be exactly the case. That's a Western or perhaps a North American piece that has found its way down there as part of sort of this international tourism and trade business. Janine mentioned black and white. I do almost all my portraits, or the vast majority of them, in black and white, for the very reason that was already mentioned. This particular instance, the colors are so vibrant and so rich that they serve to distract viewers from the essence of this photograph, which is really the faces of the mother and child. And that's really what I want people to look at, their faces and more specifically their eyes. And so that's the primary reason that I made this photograph in black and white. Just as a matter of sort of trivia, when shooting digital photography, all of the photographs are made in color. All of these captures and these digital files were made in color. And then I actually converted this photograph to black and white. And Janine had asked, inquired about that, and I actually sent her a copy of the file in color before I had done the conversion. And Janine, I don't know if you have that available, but if you want to show that.
I do. It's right here.
Ooh,
Yeah.
How vibrant those colors are. And
oh my God.
Yeah.
I find it distracting. And as a result, I think the black and white treatment is the more effective one. But of course, everyone has their own opinion about these things.
Yeah, I have to say the emotional response for me is very, very different when I see the color version than when I see the version in black and white. What is everyone else thinking? A lot of good response when the color came on. What are your thoughts?
It makes the faces less clear.
Yeah.
It overtakes the picture, the color.
Yeah. Although I do love the rainbow little pom-pom part of his hat.
It's so cute.
I'm glad for the opportunity to see both and hear, you know, the photographer's comments about why he does what he does. It's so much more enriching. So it was a fabulous contrast.
Yeah. Do you find that your eyes go to a different, you know, do they go right to her pink sleeve or her yellow head when you see it, particularly against the black background, right?
Right. Yeah.
The eye almost doesn't know where to start or rest first.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a much more frenetic looking piece. So my feelings are much more, it's a much more excited feeling that it's very subdued when I'm looking at the black and white. There's more of a, and I don't necessarily mean somber in a sad way, but it's almost more of a, I don't know, less exuberant. I'm not sure. It's more of a meaningful connection, I think.
Yes.
There's a Canadian photographer, pretty well-known photographer named Ted Grant. And he once said, and this quote has been reproduced in many, many places, but he once said that when you photograph a subject in color, you photograph their clothes. But when you photograph a subject in black and white, you photograph their soul. And that is a very good and succinct way of characterizing why black and white, in this particular instance, I think is the more effective treatment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ron, somebody is asking for you to talk about the framing door.
So when I make portraits like this in the field, I try to find a neutral background or some place where I can situate the subject in good light, but also with a background that is not going to be distracting. And in this particular instance, there was a building, almost a hut, that had an open doorway, and the sun was shining from outside into the doorway, but it was so dark inside that by situating her and the baby in front of the doorway, they were in beautiful light, but there was nothing behind them. It almost looks like we had a studio set up with a black backdrop. And that makes this picture, I think, effective in that your eyes are drawn to the subjects and you're not drawn to extraneous details outside of the immediacy of their faces. There are certainly many, many circumstances where you want to see additional information in the frame beyond just the subject. And those types of portraits are often called environmental portraits because the environment in which the subject is situated is very important to a full understanding of the picture. But in this particular instance, what I was really interested in capturing was her and the child and the interaction of the two of them with me and the camera. And so situating them in that doorway where the background was completely black I think in this particular circumstance was an effective choice.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
And really, there's such a remarkable difference between this and this,
Yeah,
you know. So, yeah,
amazing.
it is amazing. Really nicely done.
Thank
Thanks so much, Ron. And same thing, please feel free to stay on. We have about 20 minutes or so left in the actual presentation for the last piece. And then we can, if you want to stay on and take some questions, that might be awesome if you can hang around.
Thank you.
So our last image struck me just as significantly as the other two did. And I am hoping you'll feel the same. It's one of a series of which this one is in the show. The others are not. Yeah, so take a look. All right, what do we see? Just list all the elements. There's a whole bunch going on in here. So what's there? What's the first thing what's the first thing that jumps out at you?
The bitten apple.
The bitten apple. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Beauty is skin deep.
Ah. Okay.
There's a good
Looks-
side and a bad side to everything.
Yeah.
Looks can be deceiving.
Yes, they can. Yes.
That's good.
I'm writing all this down so I don't forget it. So the fruit is an apple, yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting choice of color, considering there could have been others, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does it remind you of anything?
What's that called, that fairy tale?
Snow White.
The
Yeah.
snow. That's it.
Snow White who bit the apple and it was poisonous.
There you go. She bit the red apple and it turned
Yes.
out to be poisonous. So it was interesting that he chose to use red, the
Mhm.
red apple, I thought. Now this is a photograph, not a painting. It's an actual photograph. And I just thought the mirror position was amazing.
Yes.
It is.
I have no idea. Well, I shouldn't say that. Now I know because I asked the question, but no idea how it could have been taken when I first saw it. And the fact that it's part of a series is really amazing. I'm sorry, I actually should have put the other pieces of the series on here. I wasn't sure how much time we would have, but if you go to the link that Lee will send at the end and look at the whole show, when you click on the photographer, I'll give you his info in a second. When you click on his bio, you'll get a link to his website that has all of his work to include the other pieces in this series. But how are the apple, what's the similar piece in the apple, like in the image that you're seeing? What's similar about it? About each?
At first, it actually looks like two different apples.
Right. And so it's funny that you said that because in my notes I put, look at each apple. And as I'm saying that, I'm like, yeah, it's a mirror. So it's just one apple. And we're only looking at the one. But at first, I actually thought it was two apples. And I kind of still almost think that, but I don't think so. I can't really tell. The one in the mirror looks so perfect.
I think that I was looking that same thing. I was looking that the stem of the apple looks like it could be the same apple.
Okay. Okay. And there's something to be said about that, right? Because you were saying earlier that there's a good side and a bad side. So why do you think he chose an apple?
It was the forbidden fruit.
There you go. It was the forbidden fruit. That's a voice I recognize. That's my mom, everyone. She is. But yeah, so there is that, right? There's that whole biblical piece that it wasn't a plant, by the way. No pun intended. She just said that. But okay, it was a forbidden fruit. What about like an apple a day?
Mm-hmm.
The little adage, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. We tend to think of apples as sort of a healthy choice, right?
Yeah, and as a teacher, you know the old bring an apple to the teacher. There's so many times when apples come in to our, the story of life in such a different way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Why do you think that he chose the rotten side of the apple facing us and not the mirror?
I just thought about the Snow White thing about mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of us all? And, she's an attractive lady, but she's, at the core, she's not a very, she's kind of rotten. So, she shows her good side, but her bad side is what we see first.
There you go. Her bad side is what we see first. And the idea that the mirror is a reflection, it's a super deep photograph, right? You could stand in front of it for a long time trying to ascertain all the different avenues of how the photographer wanted us to think, or what they wanted us to think about. So when we look at this bit of the apple, what feeling how does it make you feel?
Hungry?
Time to go
Hungry.
feed the squirrel.
There you go. There you go.
Wasted food.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. We don't really like to see things rot, right? Obviously, this wasn't like bitten and then he took the picture. It was obviously sitting for a bit. But beautifully captured. Like, to me, this looks like a Rembrandt, I mean, it's just it does not look like a photograph to me. I'm not really sure why, but amazing.
Wonderful.
If you had to title this, what would you title it?
In the beast.
Things are not always what they seem.
Yeah. Raj says two-face. Things are not always what they seem.
Deception.
Deception. Yeah. So the image was taken by a photographer named Chuck Rasco, and a link to his website is found on his bio at the Lone Tree Art Center website. Lee will send it afterward. But the title of this piece is called "Nothing is Wrong," which sort of, to me, when I read the title, "Nothing is Wrong," it gives me a very different feeling than something like Larry's suggestion of deception, right? Now I don't feel as much deceit, more than I feel maybe some empathy or some sympathy. So unfortunately, Chuck couldn't join us today to discuss his photograph. He explained that he's a tech guy in a school system. So I told him his job in getting kids online for their remote work was quite important now. But he did send me some information this morning, and he asked me to share it with you to tell you a little bit more about this piece and his work in general. So I'm reading to you what he sent me. He says, I wanted the shot to be a storyteller, to get people to talk about what they see in it. Hearing the different things that people see in it and the stories and meanings they get from it is so much fun to listen to. My initial intent with this image was to tell a story about how we see ourselves versus the way the world sees us. At the time, I was in a veterans photography workshop, and as we discussed projects we wanted to work on, and as we discussed projects we wanted to work on for this workshop, the discussion of PTSD came up. And during that discussion, I could see this image in my mind. PTSD is a silent killer where everything can look fine on the outside, but inside the person is dying. After I finished it and had it hanging in the VFW gallery, I saw that it spoke to everyone and not just veterans. Everyone has something going on inside, something eating away at them, yet on the surface, nothing is wrong. When I was creating this image and the others in the series, it was a feeling of empathy toward fellow veterans that may be quietly suffering through their inner turmoil while those around them don't see it. As far as overall photography, I've been shooting for about 25 years. I've taken it a lot more seriously in the last 10. I normally shoot landscapes and nightscapes. I love to shoot the Milky Way and the night sky and show people what they're missing when they're in their homes in the cities. I grew up in a very populated area and couldn't see the Milky Way at all. It wasn't until I was an adult and moved to Colorado that I saw it for the first time while standing on a mountain pass, and I was hooked right then. During the winters, I shoot still life in my basement and office and try to come up with images like this. I still shoot landscapes, but not nearly as often. So to keep the creativity going, I create images at home. And so that is Chuck's piece. Now, my question to him was, how did you get the mirror to stand up? Does anybody have any guesses?
It has one of those things in the back.
Like a stand?
A stand.
Okay. He actually
Put it against the wall.
I thought that at first, but then I noticed that there's where the shadow is and the edge of the table. It's actually fishing line that he used to suspend the mirror, and then erased it in Photoshop.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
To me, it was like an illusion.
Oh,
It was quite cool. Really awesome. So that we are pretty close to ending. Any questions about this last piece? Or any of the previous pieces that we saw? So we had Ron's piece and we had Raj's piece, who's still who's still on the call. So if you have questions for either of the gentlemen, please, this would be an excellent time to ask them.
Ron, with the close-up of the baby, right above the white sleeve, it looks like ILL department or something. Do you know what that was?
I see that myself, and I can't tell you what that is. No, I don't know.
But we definitely know it's some sort of Western wear, right? From here. Well, I'm going to head to the last slide because it does have now Raj has a website, but it's in the process of being finished. Am I right, Raj? I'm pretty sure. And
it's called, it's someday it'll be allingoodlight.com.
Okay. Oh, tell me the title. Do you have a title? I mean, a website name?
It'll be called All in Good Light.
Allingoodlight.com. Okay, well, we will keep an eye out for that. And because the show is once a year, we definitely hope to see you in it again. I know that both you and Ron submitted your work to, what was the show you sent me a link to? St. Louis? No.
No, Ron's work is also an award winner in Louisville. And
oh, Louisville, right.
they just took it down last week.
Oh, okay. And then Chuck's website is there, as is Ron's website. And also thanks so much to Lee for being the chat moderator. And yeah, unless anybody has any questions, you can, I'll stay on for a minute, but you can stay on and chat. And again, there's no lemonade or cookies, unfortunately.
Oh.
I know, Sam, I'm so sorry. But
Excellent
when
program.
yeah.
Yes,
So.
excellent.
Thank
I
you
also
so
just
much.
wanted to say, on behalf of the Lawrence Arts Center, thanks for coming, and we will be announcing additional Spark presentations that will be virtual for the rest of the year, and hopefully we'll know what that programming is going to be in the next week or so. So check your emails coming within the next week or two.
Perfect.
Great.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Janine. Good job,
Thank
Janine Madden.
you. Excellent.
Thank you. All right, you
Thank
guys
you.
have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the week.